So the iPhone 15 has been out for a week at this point, and I have some interesting experiences. And for this review, we're not going to dig too much into the headlines. They will be referenced, but I think if you're coming from an older iPhone, such as the 11, the 12, and maybe even the 13, this is a decent upgrade. So let's just dive in. I'm going to divide this review into three parts. So the good, the mid, and the bad. So we'll start off with the good. I think the titanium finish is really nice. It's not as much of a fingerprint magnet as the stainless steel on the 11, the 12, and the 13, even the 14. It feels really good in the hands. The design, if you're used to any iPhone, it's gonna look like any other iPhone. So it's not gonna fold. It's not gonna do anything crazy. It's just a regular rectangular phone. A little disclaimer, I am not a avid photographer. However, I think that the difference between the 15 Pro and the 13 Pro, which is the phone I currently have, to me it just feels like the photos are the same. On the 15 Pro, there are some really nice details that are captured in the photos, but if you are like me and you just take pictures of random moments in life or just because you see something cool, I don't think that the difference between the 15 and the 13 is going to be night and day. At least that's just for me. In terms of the software overall, it comes with iOS 17. iOS 17 has a ton of useful features, such as name drop, check-in, etc. I already have a video outlining the iOS 17 experience. And if you're coming from an older iPhone that is running iOS 17, you're not going to see much difference. I don't think there's anything in the 15 series that takes advantage of anything in iOS 17.
Okay, I found this on the web for take advantage of anything in iOS 17. I think it's just the same all the models. Check it out.
Now, let's just go into the mid. So the colors, I know there's always controversy about the colors. The 15 Pro comes in white titanium, natural titanium, blue titanium, and black titanium. It doesn't matter because you're probably just going to put a case on it at the end of the day. But it seems like every year that there are new iPhones, there are a camp of people who hate the new colors and a camp of people who love the new colors. I am in a camp where the colors are just I personally think that the white titanium is the best. The 15 Pros, or actually all of the iPhone 15 models, now come with the dynamic island. And as someone who did not purchase the iPhone 14, I found the dynamic island to be pretty useful. However, it did wear out its usefulness like the day after I got the phone. That is because I can't find a lot of third-party apps that take advantage of it without having some sort of subscription tied to it. It's mid. With Dynamic Island, I think there needs to be a lot more third-party app support. One more mid thing about the iPhone 15 Pro is the use of the action button. And the action button allows you to customize different actions you can take when you press and hold the button. So for example, if you have the Chat GPT app installed, you can set up your action button so that whenever you press and hold the button, then you will be able to use the Chat GPT app. It's just another button that I just completely just ignore. The 15 Pro comes with a new chip and it's supposed to enhance the gaming experience on iPhone. Personally, I don't think I'm gonna play anything like hardcore on my iPhone. I have a PlayStation 5, so if I needed to play like a very graphic intensive game, I am just going to go to the PS5. I'm not going to bother using my iPhone. And I think Apple seems to be making this push into gaming, and I think it's all going to come ahead once the Vision Pro launches. But as of now, I have a few games on my iPhone. I have Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, which is not really graphic intensive. If you're going to game, you might as well just get a console. I don't think smartphones are at that level and have that user base in order for game publishers to really spend the time to port their games over to a new platform, especially a platform that has a lot of restrictions. There's one mid thing, and this is going to be very controversial. It's the USB-C port. The USB-C port, for those of you who may not know, replaces the Lightning port, and it allows for faster transfers. In addition, the advantages to USB-C is if you have a PlayStation 5 controller, if you have one of the newer iPad Pro models, and if you have a MacBook Pro that uses USB-C, you can use one cable to charge all of those devices. I am pretty sure there are other tech channels that are very over the moon about USB-C, and I think about this entire situation differently. Now, the only reason Apple has upgraded to USB-C is because the European Union is actually forcing their hand. All new smartphones and accessories need to have a USB-C port. Apple doesn't want to lose market share in Europe, so they are going to add the port. The thing I am thinking about is, why is a governmental body interested in the port of one of the most personal devices citizens have? If you're the type to transfer a lot of data between your phone and your Mac and you don't want to rely on AirDrop, then having the USB-C port and cable will be very helpful to you. Now we are going to get to the bad. One of the big controversies about the iPhone is the durability of it. And I personally think this is blown out to be something that is much bigger than it actually is. And that is because, one, the majority of people use cases on their iPhones. Those cases are going to take the brunt of any falls or drops or scrapes. Smartphones being fragile is nothing new. We had the iPhone 6 with Bendgate. We had the first launch of the Note Fold, which everyone seems to have strangely forgot about. They were not really durable. Reviewers with fingernails were able to damage the screen. And it was a really big story for a while, but it's something that is common in the smartphone market nowadays. Long are the days where we're going to have a Nokia phone that can, withstand just like the Hulk, like throwing it or something. These smartphones are all fragile. And, if you're concerned about dropping your iPhone and having it break, you can either buy a case or you can just get Apple Care and you should be fine. Like I mentioned before, the fact that the phone breaks easier is not a good PR on Apple's part, but any phone is going to be very fragile. There's also the controversy of the phone becoming too hot. And I've experienced this as well. However, I wasn't doing anything intensive. I was listening to music. And I don't know if this is a hardware issue or a software issue. If it is a software issue, then Apple should be able to fix it. And I am pretty sure that it is the highest priority of the company right now. So maybe by the time iOS 17.1 is released, then that should hopefully work out the overheating issues. If it's a hardware issue, then I think Apple is going to be in hot water for the rest of this iPhone cycle. And hopefully they will take the feedback that people are saying about the overheating, about the durability. I hope they will take that into account for the iPhone 16. And the final negative thing about the 15 Pro is that it starts at 128 gigabytes of storage. For a $1,000 phone, I think 128 is kind of pushing it, especially in 2023, especially with how much power is in these cameras. They're able to output 4K video. They have 48 megapixels on the cameras. So 128 is going to be eaten pretty quickly by just like a couple of photos and a couple of videos, right? I think what Apple's hoping is for customers to do one of two things. One, either get the 256 storage option, which is the model of the phone that I am using to actually record this video on, or Apple's hoping that if you do purchase the 128 gigabytes of storage, then you would also subscribe to Apple iCloud Plus. But if you feel comfortable with 128 gigabytes, then I think you'll be okay. More power to you. The question is, if you have an iPhone 11 or 12 or even a 10s, should you upgrade to the iPhone 15 Pro? I would say that if you have those three phones, then upgrading to this one would be a substantial upgrade because you're getting Dynamic Island, even though there are limited uses for it. You're getting better cameras. And you are getting the titanium finish. If you have an iPhone 13 and you're considering updating to the 15 Pro, I would really take a closer look to see the differences between the two. That is because one, you're only updating, between like 2 years. So there may be some cases where you do appreciate the new features of the 15 Pro. However, there's also cases where you may not appreciate the new features just because, it kind of feels the same unless you're an active photographer and you can tell those subtle differences. Another thing to consider if you have an iPhone XS through an iPhone 13 is just the cost of the phone. The Apple trade-in values are pretty garbage, especially for the 13 Pro. If you are in a tight financial situation, I would suggest that you do not upgrade your smartphone. If you have the discretionary income to do it, go ahead. It's your money, you work for it. Don't let anyone make you feel bad about purchasing a phone if you have the discretionary income and you have the financial responsibility that, quite frankly, a lot of Americans don't. That is my view of the 15 Pro. As far as whether or not I am going to keep the 15 Pro, I still have until next Friday from the time of this video recording to return it to Apple for a full refund, or I could give either the 15 Pro or the 13 Pro to my mother, or even sell one of the two phones. Do all of the YouTube things. I will see you in the next video. Take care.